It's okay, son. We'll get this sorted out.
Don't worry about it, sweetie.
Are you all right?
A folder slipped from her hands. Medical reports scattered across the floor. School records. A photograph slid across the tiles and stopped against his shoe. He bent down. A little boy. About 5 years old. Curly hair. A toy stethoscope around his neck. And around the boy's chest, a silver phoenix necklace. His heart stopped. He had fastened that exact necklace around a woman's neck with his own hands. 6 years ago. She wasn't wearing it. The boy was. 2,190 days. That's how long he believed she left him for another man. Believed she was carrying someone else's child. Believed she vanished before she could tell him the secret she promised to reveal the next morning. Then the boy smiled. A dimple appeared. The exact mark every man in his family was born with. The boy looked up and asked the question that detonated across the lobby. "Mommy, why does that man look exactly like me?" She grabbed the boy's hand and ran for the elevator. He got the doors open before they closed. 3 people. 1 secret. 6 years of unanswered questions, trapped in a box moving between floors. He asked the wrong question. She gave him the only answer that mattered. "You lost the right to ask that 6 years ago." Then she said 2 words that changed everything. "Ask Bae."
This is the story of a lie that survived 6 years inside one family, written by one man, trusted by everyone, questioned by no one. A woman who raised a son completely alone, believing he'd be abandoned. A father who never got to hear a single false word. And a 5-year-old boy with a stethoscope who is about to offend an umpire without ever knowing he's doing it. Welcome to Bloom and Blow. This is he saw the woman he thought left him. Who is Bae and what did he steal? Let's go.
Sihyun had just finished visiting his recovering father in the VIP rehabilitation wing of Seoul Central Medical Center when he froze in the middle of the hospital lobby. Standing across the polished floor was Nalia Adesanya, the woman he had loved. The woman Director Bae had convinced him had left him for another man. The woman he was told was carrying another man's child. The woman who had disappeared before she could tell him the important secret she had promised to reveal the next morning. And standing beside her was a little boy. About 5 years old. The automatic doors slid open. A gust of wind swept through the building. A folder slipped from Nalia's hands before she even realized her fingers had let go. Medical reports scattered across the polished floor. School records followed. Neither of them moved because one photograph had escaped the pile, sliding across the tiles until it stopped against Sihyun's shoe. He bent down. At first he only noticed the child. In the photograph, a smiling little boy looked back at him. About 5 years old. Curly hair. Bright eyes. A toy stethoscope hanging around his neck. Then Sihyun noticed what was hanging against the boy's chest. The silver phoenix necklace. His heart stopped. 6 years ago he had fastened that necklace around Nalia's neck with his own hands. His assistant was speaking. His phone was vibrating. Someone was calling his name. Sihyun heard none of it. For 2,190 days, Sihyun had forced himself to believe Director Bae's story. That Nalia had left him. That she had chosen another man. That she never wanted to see him again. But Nalia wasn't wearing the necklace. The boy was. Sihyun looked from the photograph to the child standing beside Nalia, and his mind began doing the math. 6 years. A 5-year-old boy. His necklace. His family's mark. No, that wasn't possible. Then the little boy smiled. A tiny dimple appeared on his left cheek. The Han family mark. The mark his father carried. The mark his grandfather carried. The mark every Han man was born with. The necklace. The dimple. The dates. For the first time in 6 years, Sihyun found himself asking a question he had never dared ask before. If Director Bae had lied about Nalia, what else had he lied about? The little boy pointed directly at him. "Mommy." He tilted his head. "Why does that man look exactly like me?" The question detonated across the lobby. For 1 second nobody moved. Not Nalia. Not Sihyun. Not even the receptionist behind the desk. Then Nalia moved first. "Kofi." Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Hold Mommy's hand now." The little boy obeyed immediately. Nalia crouched and gathered the scattered papers. Medical reports, school records, anything she could reach. Some papers remained on the floor. She left them. "Nalia." Sihyun's voice followed her. She didn't stop. She stood, turned, walked toward the elevators fast, not running but close. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside with Kofi. The doors began closing. A hand appeared between them. The sensors reacted immediately. The doors slid back open. Si-hyun stepped inside. The air changed instantly. 3 people. 1 secret. 6 years of unanswered questions. The elevator doors closed. Nobody spoke. Kofi looked from his mother to Si-hyun, then back again like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Finally, Si-hyun broke the silence. Whose child is that? The moment the words left his mouth, he hated them. Wrong question. Wrong wording. Wrong everything. Nalia stared straight ahead. You lost the right to ask that question 6 years ago. The answer hit harder than shouting. Si-hyun swallowed. He has the necklace. No response. He has the mark. Still nothing. Then Nalia turned slowly. The anger in her eyes wasn't fresh. Fresh anger burns. This one had aged. It had survived 6 years. You want answers? Her voice was quiet. Dangerously quiet. Ask Bae. Si-hyun froze for the first time all day. Something frightened him more than the necklace. More than the dimple. More than the impossible math. Bae. The elevator dinged. Parking garage. The doors opened. Nalia walked out. Kofi followed. But before disappearing completely, the little boy stopped, turned around, and looked directly at Si-hyun. The dimple appeared again. Then he was gone. The doors closed. Si-hyun stood alone, photograph in hand, heart racing, mind spinning. 2 words echoing over and over. Aspe. 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 And suddenly 6 years of certainty didn't feel certain anymore. Nalia got Kofi home. She barely remembered the drive. One moment she was standing in the hospital parking garage, the next she was unlocking her apartment door. Kofi dropped his backpack, kicked off his shoes, and for a while he pretended everything was normal. Nalia did the same. Dinner came. Dinner went. Neither of them mentioned the hospital until Kofi finally looked up from his plate. Mommy. She already knew the question was coming. Yes. The man. Her hand stopped. What about him? He looked like me. Silence. Kofi pointed to his cheek, the dimple, then to his eyes. And these? Nalia forced a smile. Lots of people look alike. Kofi shook his head. No. The certainty in his voice tightened something inside her chest. You knew him. Not a question. A statement. Nalia stood. Bedtime. Kofi knew he had touched something important, but he also knew when to stop pushing. 5 minutes later she tucked him into bed, kissed his forehead, started toward the door. Then Kofi spoke again. Do you think he saw my necklace? Nalia froze. Her eyes dropped to the silver phoenix resting against his chest. The same necklace. The same memory. The same 6-year secret. Go to sleep, baby. She turned off the light. Closed the door. And the moment she reached her room, the memories came back. Director Bae sitting across from her 6 years ago. Calm, gentle, careful, almost fatherly. Si-hyun asked me to speak to you. He chose his family. He chose the company. It's better if you move on. She had believed every word because she was pregnant, alone, and heartbroken enough to believe anything. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the darkness. Then she remembered Si-hyun's face inside the elevator. The shock in his eyes. The confusion. The way he kept repeating he has the mark. That wasn't the face of a man protecting a secret. That was the face of a man discovering one. Something shifted inside her. Small, sharp, dangerous. And for the first time in 6 years, Nalia allowed herself to ask the question she had buried a long time ago. What if Director Bae had lied? Across the city, Si-hyun sat alone in the dark. The photograph lay on his desk. The necklace, the dimple, the boy. Again and again. Then another memory surfaced. The last night. Nalia smiling, then suddenly serious. I have something important to tell you tomorrow. Tomorrow. Not next month. Not someday. Tomorrow. Si-hyun closed his eyes. If she had planned to leave, why ask for tomorrow? If she had chosen another man, why keep the necklace? If she had wanted him gone, why tell him to ask Bae? His eyes opened. For 6 years he had asked one question. Why did Nalia leave that night? A different question appeared. What if Nalia never left? What if she was the one who got abandoned? What if they had both been living inside the same lie? He looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. tomorrow morning he was going to find Director Bae, because one thing had become painfully clear. Somebody had stolen 6 years from them. And Si-hyun was done paying the price for somebody else's lie. He skipped breakfast, skipped his meetings, ignored 3 board members who called back to back, and drove straight to Director Bae's office. No appointment. No warning. No time to prepare a story. The secretary barely had time to stand before Si-hyun pushed the door open. Bae looked up from his desk and for the first time in years he looked genuinely surprised. Si-hyun. Si-hyun said nothing. He walked forward, reached into his jacket and dropped the photograph onto the desk. It slid across the polished wood and stopped directly in front of Bae. Silence. Bae looked down at the picture. For just a fraction of a second his face changed. Then it was gone. Controlled. Composed. Who is he? Si-hyun asked. Bae leaned back slowly. A child. Who is he? Bae exhaled. You already know what happened. Nalia chose another life. Still nothing. Si-hyun's voice was flat. She told you the child wasn't mine. The room went cold. Nothing has changed, Bae said. No. I only know what you told me. For the first time, Bae looked uncomfortable. Si-hyun reached forward. He pointed at the photograph, the silver phoenix necklace at the boy's neck. Then he pointed at the boy's smile. The dimple. The Han family mark. Bae said nothing. And that silence was louder than any denial. Then Si-hyun asked the question that had kept him awake all night. Did Nalia ever tell you herself that the child belonged to another man? Bae froze. Just for a second. But Si-hyun had been watching. He caught it. The hesitation. The calculation. The fear. Bae recovered quickly. You're reopening wounds that should stay buried. Silence. The board meeting starts in 40 minutes. Wrong answer. Not yes, not no. A distraction. A subject change. And that was the only answer Si-hyun needed. For 6 years he had trusted this man. Believed every word. Accepted every explanation. Now for the first time he wasn't hearing answers. He was hearing excuses. Slowly he picked up the photograph, turned around and walked toward the door. Before leaving he stopped. Without looking back he said, "If you're lying to me." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Then he walked out. The door closed. Bae didn't move. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then his hand reached for his phone and this time it was shaking. For 6 years, Nalia had been nothing more than a finished chapter. At least that was what Bae believed. The problem had been solved. The relationship had ended. The two lives had moved in different directions. And after that day, Bae had never bothered finding out where Nalia went. Never bothered finding out what became of her. Why would he? As far as he was concerned, she no longer mattered. Then Chairman Han got sick. For the first time in years, the family began spending time inside Seoul Central Medical Center. A medical complex so large it operated more like a small city. Different towers. Different departments. Different specialty centers. Thousands of employees. Thousands of patients. People could spend years inside that system without ever crossing paths. And somehow Si-hyun had crossed paths with Nalia. Bae didn't know how. He didn't know why. He only knew it had happened and that it should never have happened. Now Si-hyun had seen the child. He had seen the necklace. He had seen the dimple. The three things Bae had spent 6 years keeping away from him. And suddenly a lie that had survived for 6 years was standing on the edge of collapse. Bae opened his contacts. His eyes landed on one name. Mira. She worked inside Seoul Central. If anyone could help him understand what had happened in that lobby, it was Mira. He pressed call. Mira. Pause. I need a favor. Another pause. His jaw tightened. I need to know everything you can tell me about Nalia Adesanya. And the boy who was with her. For the first time in 6 years, Director Bae wasn't protecting a secret. He was trying to stop it from exploding. Now, before we go any further, you need to know what happened in the weeks leading up to that lobby. Subscribe to Bloom and Glow right now and turn on the notification bell, because what's coming is going to break you open completely. Let's continue. A few weeks earlier, Kofi had wandered into the rehabilitation wing by accident. Nalia had been working. A nurse had been watching him. And somehow Kofi had ended up talking to an elderly patient sitting alone after therapy. Nobody planned what happened next. A bored 5-year-old boy had started talking and Chairman Han, a man famous for his cold personality and impossible standards, had answered. Ever since then, the friendship had grown naturally. Now Kofi looked forward to seeing him, and though he would never admit it, Chairman Han looked forward to seeing Kofi too. 2 days after the hospital lobby incident, Kofi returned. The toy stethoscope still hung proudly around his neck. By now, most of the rehabilitation staff knew him by name. The nurses greeted him. The therapists waved. Even the security guards smiled when they saw him. One nurse had started calling him Dr. Kofi. The nickname stuck immediately. Chairman Han was halfway through a rehabilitation exercise when Kofi appeared in the doorway carrying his drawing pad. Hospital grandpa. The old man's face changed instantly. You're late, Chairman Han complained. Kofi gasped dramatically. You noticed? Of course. I had homework. Convenient excuse. Kofi grinned. The entire room felt lighter. As always, Kofi's first duty was his medical examination. He marched straight toward Chairman Han, placed the toy stethoscope against his chest, listened carefully, moved it to his shoulder, then his forehead. The nurses were already laughing. Finally, Kofi stepped back, folded his arms, and nodded seriously. Good news. Chairman Han raised an eyebrow. What? You're still alive. The room erupted with laughter. Even Chairman Han couldn't hide his smile. The friendship had become a routine. Whenever Kofi appeared, Chairman Han complained less, worked harder, recovered faster. The therapists noticed. The nurses noticed. Everyone noticed. One afternoon, Chairman Han refused to finish his lunch. The nurses argued with him. Nothing worked. Then Kofi climbed into the chair beside him, folded his tiny arms and frowned. Patients who don't eat don't get better. Silence. Chairman Han stared at him. Kofi stared back. A few seconds later, the old man picked up his spoon. The tray was empty within minutes. The nurses nearly celebrated. One nurse later pulled Nalia aside. Your son is performing miracles. Nalia laughed. What did he do now? He got the chairman to finish his lunch. Nalia shook her head. That sounded exactly like Kofi. The strange thing was that Nalia knew very little about the patient Kofi adored so much. She knew only what Kofi told her. An elderly rehabilitation patient. A grumpy grandfather. Hospital grandpa. That was all. She had never paid much attention to his identity, never imagined he had any connection to her past. And Chairman Han knew even less about her. 6 years earlier he had never met Nalia. Everything he believed about her came from Director Bae. The stories. The pregnancy. The claim that she had chosen another man. The claim that she had abandoned Si-hyun. But he had never seen her face, never spoken to her, never met her. Neither of them realized they had been connected long before they ever met. That afternoon, Kofi climbed into the chair beside the hospital bed. I brought you something important. Chairman Han adjusted his glasses. Another masterpiece, obviously. He handed over the drawing. The chairman studied it. A hospital bed, a smiling old man, a little boy, a giant sun, and something that looked suspiciously like a potato with legs. What is that? The dog. I know it's the dog. Then why did you ask? The old man laughed. A real laugh. The kind nobody in the Han family had heard in years. Later, a nurse announced it was time for Kofi to leave. Chairman Han looked genuinely disappointed. Already? The nurse smiled. You'll see him again. The old man looked directly at Kofi. You promise? Kofi raised 3 fingers. I promise. Then he suddenly stopped. Hospital grandpa. Do you know the tall man from the lobby? Chairman Han looked up. What tall man? The one that looks like me. The old man's expression changed. Kofi continued casually. He kept looking at me near the elevator. Then he shrugged. I thought maybe you knew him. Mira liked Nalia. Most people did. But Kofi was impossible not to love, which was why Director Bae's questions felt wrong immediately. When does Nalia usually leave? I don't know. What days does she bring Kofi? I've never paid attention. Does Kofi spend much time in rehabilitation? Mira frowned. Why? Bae smiled, but the smile never reached his eyes. Just curious. The questions continued. Too many. Too specific. Too interested in a little boy. By the time Mira left his office, she knew one thing. Bae wasn't curious. He was worried. That night she couldn't stop thinking about it. Then she remembered something Nalia had mentioned years ago. When everything ended between Nalia and Si-hyun, Bae had been the messenger. Not Si-hyun. Not a lawyer. Bae, the man who delivered the news, the man who closed the door between them. A chill ran through her. The next morning she found Nalia before rounds. Can I tell you something? Nalia nodded. Mira lowered her voice. Be careful around Director Bae. The smile disappeared from Nalia's face instantly. Why? He's asking questions about Kofi. Silence. He wants to know when you arrive, when you leave, which departments you visit. Nalia's stomach tightened. Not because she didn't know who Bae was. She knew exactly who he was. 6 years ago he had been the man who told her Si-hyun didn't want her. The man who convinced her to walk away. And now he was asking questions about her son. That night Nalia sat beside Kofi's bed long after he fell asleep. For 5 years she had built a quiet life. A safe life. A life far away from old heartbreak. Now Si-hyun had seen Kofi. Bae was asking questions. And for the first time in years, a feeling she hated began creeping back. Fear. Not for herself. For Kofi. Kofi couldn't stop talking about two people. Hospital grandpa and the hospital man. At breakfast he mentioned them. After school he mentioned them. Before bed he mentioned them. Hospital grandpa says my drawings are masterpieces. Hospital grandpa cheats at checkers. Hospital grandpa misses me when I don't visit. Nalia laughed despite herself. Then Kofi asked, "Do you think the hospital man knows me?" The smile disappeared. "What do you mean?" He looked sad. Nalia froze. "He looked at me like he knew me." A few days later Kofi sat at the dining table drawing. Nalia barely noticed until he handed her the page. "Look." She stared. 4 people stood in the picture. Kofi, Nalia, hospital grandpa, and the hospital man, all standing together like a family. Nalia looked at the drawing again, then at Kofi. "Why is he standing there?" Kofi pointed at the hospital man. "Because he looks lonely." The answer hit harder than it should have. Meanwhile, Si-hyun couldn't stop staring at Kofi's photograph. At first he searched for proof. Now he found himself asking different questions. What school did Kofi attend? What cartoons did he watch? What was his favorite food? What was his first word? How many birthdays had he missed? How many first days of school? How many scraped knees? How many bedtime stories? The questions hurt more than the betrayal ever had. That afternoon, Chairman Han noticed Kofi's drawing lying on his bedside table. 4 stick figures. 1 little boy. 1 family. He stared at it for a long time. Then his eyes drifted to Kofi's photograph beside the bed. The necklace. The dimple. The smile. Something about the picture felt painfully right and painfully wrong. 4 people, 1 family, a family that wasn't supposed to exist, at least according to everything Bae had told him. Chairman Han looked down at the drawing again. Then at Kofi's photograph. And for the first time in 6 years he found himself asking a question he never should have ignored. What if Bae was wrong? That night Chairman Han requested every file connected to Nalia's disappearance. For the first time in 6 years he was no longer trying to understand Kofi. He was investigating Bae. Chairman Han couldn't sleep. The dimple, the necklace, the drawing, the questions kept returning. Just after midnight he requested the old files. The files from 6 years ago. The files connected to Nalia. The next morning 2 boxes arrived. Chairman Han opened them and started reading. The first thing he noticed wasn't a lie. It was an absence. There wasn't a single message from Nalia. Not one. No letter, no email, no voicemail, nothing. Every update came from one person. Director Bae. Not a single conversation had come directly from Nalia herself. Bae said Nalia left. Bae said she chose another man. Bae said she was pregnant. Bae said she wanted no contact. Everything came through Bae. Everything. Chairman Han frowned. For 30 years he had trusted Bae so completely he had never verified any of it. Now that trust suddenly felt dangerous. Then he found something else. A prenatal hospital record dated 3 weeks after Bae claimed Nalia had already left Seoul. Chairman Han checked the date again. Then the clinic. Seoul. She was still here. Minutes later he found another appointment. Same city, same clinic, weeks after Bae claimed she was gone. The old man slowly leaned back. His heart was pounding. Because Bae never made mistakes, which meant this wasn't a mistake. Chairman Han called at 7. Come to the hospital. Nothing else. 30 minutes later, Si-hyun entered the room. His father handed him a file. Read. Si-hyun opened it. His eyes stopped immediately. A prenatal appointment dated 3 weeks after Bae claimed Nalia had already left Seoul. Then a second appointment. Same clinic, same city, weeks after Bae said she was gone. She was still here. Chairman Han nodded. Yes, there is more. He handed over another folder. Si-hyun opened it. No letters from Nalia. No emails. No messages. No phone records. Nothing. Every piece of information about Nalia's disappearance came from one person. Director Bae. The room fell silent. For 6 years Si-hyun believed Nalia abandoned him. For 6 years Nalia believed he abandoned her. And neither lie came from each other. It came from Bae. She was pregnant. Silence. She was alone. Another silence. She thought I left. Si-hyun lowered his head. Then one final realization arrived. She raised Kofi by herself. He closed his eyes. 5 birthdays. 5 first days of school. 5 years of bedtime stories. Gone. Across the room, Chairman Han looked away. For the first time since Si-hyun entered, the old man seemed unable to meet his son's eyes. I should have questioned him. His voice was quiet. I trusted Bae. Silence. I never asked for proof. Another silence. And because I didn't question him, a child grew up without his father. The old man looked directly at his son. I'm sorry. Si-hyun froze. His father never apologized. Not for anything. Yet here he was, an old man sitting in a hospital bed carrying the weight of 6 stolen years. Neither of them spoke for several seconds because there was nothing that could give those years back. Finally Chairman Han asked, "What are you going to do?" Si-hyun picked up Kofi's photograph. His son smiled back at him. 5 years old. 5 years gone. I'm going to talk to Nalia. Chairman Han nodded. Because both men knew the same thing. Finding the truth had been the easy part. Convincing Nalia to believe it would be much harder. Si-hyun sent one message. I need to speak with you, please. A long time passed before Nalia replied. Tomorrow. The park near the hospital. No. My choice, my rules. Nalia arrived first. She wanted the advantage. Wanted to see him before he saw her. Wanted time to leave if she changed her mind. But she stayed. Si-hyun arrived exactly on time. No assistant, no driver, no security. Just him. He stopped several feet away, far enough to respect her space, close enough to talk. Thank you for coming. Say what you need to say. Si-hyun nodded, then held out a file. Read. Nalia frowned, but she took it. The first page stopped her immediately. Prenatal appointment. Seoul. 3 weeks after Bae claimed she had already left the country. She turned the page. Another appointment. Same clinic, same city. Weeks later. Still Seoul. Her eyes lifted slowly. What is this? There is more. Si-hyun handed her a second folder. Communication records. Or rather, the lack of them. No delivered messages. No completed calls. No letters. Nothing. Every piece of information had come through one person. Director Bae. A memory surfaced instantly. Bae sitting across from her 6 years ago. Calm, confident, certain. Si-hyun chose his family. He doesn't want this child. He's moved on. He told me you didn't want us. Si-hyun's answer came immediately. I never said that. Silence. He told me you chose another man. Nalia looked directly at him. I never did. Another silence. The world seemed to narrow. 6 years gone. Not because either of them walked away. Because someone made sure they never reached each other. I waited. The words escaped before she could stop them. Si-hyun didn't interrupt. I waited for months. I kept thinking you'd call. I kept thinking there had to be an explanation. Her voice shook just slightly. Then Kofi was born. Pause. And I stopped waiting. Because she had no choice. A baby needed her. Life kept moving even when her heart didn't. Si-hyun lowered his eyes because he understood. He had spent 6 years carrying the same wound. Just from the other side. The necklace. Nalia looked up. What about it? The silver phoenix. His voice softened. I gave it to you. She nodded. Of course she remembered. I gave it to Kofi on his first birthday. For the first time, emotion broke through Nalia's expression. Not sadness. Recognition. Understanding. The necklace, the dimple, the dates, the files. Everything suddenly pointed to the same truth. Then Nalia asked the question she had carried for years. Did you ever look for me? Si-hyun didn't hesitate. The answer came too quickly to be rehearsed. Too quickly to be false. Yes. Then why didn't you find me? Because Bae told me you were gone. Silence. And I believed him. That answer hurt more than anger. Because it was honest. Neither of them spoke. For the first time in 6 years they were standing in the same place. Not enemies, not lovers, not strangers. Just two people who had been lied to. Finally Nalia stepped back. She gathered the folders, held them tightly. I need time. I know. Don't contact Kofi. I won't. She turned and started walking away. Then stopped. Not because of Si-hyun. Because of the small voice behind her. Mommy. Nalia froze. Kofi stood near the entrance, eyes wide, face pale. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be with Mira. The little boy looked from Nalia to Si-hyun, then back again. Is the tall man my father? Silence. No anger, no tears, no shouting. Just a question. A simple question that suddenly carried the weight of 6 years. Nalia knelt in front of him, took his face gently in both hands, and for the first time since Kofi was born, she didn't know what to say. Kofi didn't ask again that night. He held Nalia's hand the whole walk home. Didn't talk. Didn't look back. Just walked beside her with the quiet focus of a child turning something enormous over in his mind. Nalia let him think. But she watched his face the whole way and it scared her. Not because he was upset, because he wasn't. He was processing. Like a small, serious person who had just received information too big for his age and was determined to handle it anyway. In the morning he came to breakfast and sat down. Nalia set his food in front of him. He looked up. Mommy. Yes. Is he really my dad? No build-up, no preamble. Just the question straight and clear the way Kofi always asked things. Nalia sat down across from him. She looked at her son. The boy who drew families the way they were supposed to be. Who said the tall man looked lonely without knowing what that meant. She said the only honest thing she had. Yes. Kofi was quiet for a moment. The tall man? Yes. From the hospital? Yes. He looked down at his bowl, picked up his spoon, put it back down. Then looked up. Why wasn't he here? Not angry, not accusing. Just a child asking an honest question about a gap in his life he had never fully understood. Nalia felt her throat tighten. Someone told him lies, she said carefully. A long time ago. Before you were born. About what? About us. Kofi thought about this. Was it a bad person? Nalia looked at her son. Yes. He nodded slowly like that answered enough for now. At the hospital, Chairman Han made a decision. For 6 years he had trusted Director Bae. That trust was gone. For the first time in 30 years, he ordered a complete review of every file connected to Nalia's disappearance. Every message, every record, every communication. No assumptions. No shortcuts. Only facts. And the facts were becoming harder to ignore. Mira found the final piece that afternoon. An old message Nalia had sent to Sihyun 5 years earlier. The system showed it as delivered. But Sihyun had never received it. One name appeared in the override record. Director Bae. She photographed it, then sent it to Sihyun without a word, because it didn't need one. Bae felt the walls closing in. Mira had stopped helping him. Chairman Han was requesting files. Sihyun had gone quiet. Not the quiet of grief. The quiet of preparation. For the first time in 30 years, Bae realized he was losing control of the story. And he had no idea how much they already knew. That evening Sihyun stared at Myra's photograph for a long time. One message, one timestamp, one name. Small, almost nothing. But it was the thread that unraveled everything else. He forwarded it to his father. 3 minutes later his phone rang. Come tomorrow, Chairman Han said. Bring everything. Then the line disconnected. That night Kofi opened his drawing book. For months he had drawn 3 people. Himself. Nalia. Hospital grandpa. Now he picked up a crayon and drew a 4th figure. The tall man. Broader shoulders, dark hair, the same dimple Kofi saw every morning in the mirror. He stared at the drawing for a long time. Then carefully wrote 2 words beside the figure. That. And for the first time in his life he hoped the answer was yes. Nalia set one rule. 1 hour. Public place. She stays nearby. Sihyun agreed without hesitation. She chose the park. The same one where she had stood across from him 3 days ago with a file full of evidence and 6 years of walls between them. Different now. Same benches, same trees, same city noise. But this time Kofi was beside her, holding his backpack straps with both hands, walking slightly faster than usual. Is he already there? Kofi asked. I don't know. What if he's late? Then we wait. Kofi considered this. I don't like waiting. I know. He was already there. Standing near the fountain, hands in his pockets, the same posture as always, but his face was different. Nalia had seen Sihyun walk into boardrooms. She had seen him handle crises without blinking. She had seen him face her 3 days ago with 6 years of loss between them and hold himself completely together. He was nervous. Genuinely, visibly nervous. Because a boardroom couldn't look up at you with your own eyes. Kofi walked straight up to him. No hesitation. Hi. Sihyun looked down. Hi. Pause. Kofi studied him the way he studied everything. Seriously, completely, without embarrassment. Then he unzipped his backpack and pulled out a toy stethoscope. Sihyun blinked. What is? Hold still. Kofi pressed the stethoscope against Sihyun's chest with great clinical authority. Listen. Frowned. Listened again. You are sick. Sihyun looked down at him. I'm sick. Yes. What's wrong with me? Kofi looked up. You look sad. Silence. From a distance, Nalia pressed her lips together. Sihyun crouched down to Kofi's level. You can tell that with a stethoscope? I'm a doctor, Kofi said seriously. I can tell everything. Pause. Almost everything. I'm still learning the hard stuff. Si-hyun smiled. The first real smile Nalia had seen on his face in 6 years. They sat on a bench. Kofi took immediate control of the conversation. He explained his favorite cartoon in extraordinary detail, a 12-minute explanation involving characters Si-hyun had never heard of and a plot he couldn't quite follow. He described his teacher, her name, her strict rule about indoor voices, her hair that looked like a cloud. He described his favorite food. Tteokbokki but not too spicy. Mommy makes it wrong sometimes. Don't tell her I said that. Si-hyun said nothing but every detail landed somewhere quiet and painful. A 12-minute cartoon. A teacher with cloud hair. A birthday. A first word he never heard. A first step he never saw. 5 years of a life assembled from second-hand stories and a single photograph. Hospital grandpa says I ask too many questions, Kofi announced. Si-hyun went still. Hospital grandpa? He's in the rehabilitation wing. Kofi swung his legs off the bench. He's old and grumpy but he laughs at my drawings. I bring him one every time I visit. Si-hyun looked at him carefully. You like him? He's my favorite. Kofi considered. Besides mommy. Si-hyun said nothing for a moment. His father, sitting in a hospital bed, laughing at drawings made by a boy he had known for weeks. A boy who had walked into his life completely by accident. A boy he already called his favorite. After an hour, Nalia appeared at the edge of the path. Si-hyun stood. Kofi looked up. You're leaving? I have to. Kofi thought about this, then grabbed the sleeve of Si-hyun's jacket. Not hard. Just enough. Are you coming back tomorrow? Si-hyun looked down at the small hand on his sleeve. 5 years of missing him. 5 years of not knowing he existed. And now a question that required only one answer. Yes, he said. Okay. Kofi let go. Bring snacks. The meeting had no agenda circulated in advance. No formal notice. Just a message delivered to Director Bae's office that morning. Chairman Han requests your presence. 2 p.m. Conference Room B. Bae arrived believing he could manage it. He had managed everything else. He walked in to find Chairman Han already seated, Si-hyun standing by the window, Mira beside a laptop at the far end of the table. 3 folders on the surface in front of the empty chair. Bae looked at each of them then sat down. Thank you for coming, Chairman Han said. His voice was completely level. That was the first sign. They went through it methodically. No speeches, no accusations, just evidence presented one piece at a time. The prenatal records dated after the departure date Bae had reported. Bae explained it. A clerical error. Easy to misread a timestamp. The second record. Same explanation. Mira opened the laptop and turned it to face him. The message Nalia had sent 5 years ago. Mark delivered. Never received. His name in the override field. Bae looked at the screen. His explanation came slower this time. A system error. I had flagged it years ago. Someone must have. Chairman Han slid the second folder across the table. The intercepted correspondence log. 17 messages over 8 months. All from Nalia. None delivered. All with the same override signature. Bae stopped explaining. The third folder was the worst. A report written in Bae's own hand, delivered to Chairman Han 6 years ago. Nalia is pregnant. The child belongs to another man. She has chosen to leave. Contact is not advisable. Dated 2 weeks before Nalia's first message had been sent. 2 weeks before she had even tried to reach Si-hyun. Bae had written the ending before Nalia had sent a single word. Chairman Han looked at him. Why? One word. The whole room waited. Bae was quiet for a long time. Then he straightened. She wasn't right for this family. Silence. She was a nurse. No family connections, no standing. Si-hyun had a future to protect. He paused. I made a decision for the family. For the family, Chairman Han repeated. Yes. A decision that gave a child 5 years without a father. Bae said nothing. A decision that gave my son 6 years of grieving something that never happened. Still nothing. A decision, Chairman Han's voice stayed completely flat, that you made alone, using trust one gave you for 30 years. The silence that followed was the longest in the room. Then Chairman Han spoke. You are dismissed. Not angry, not loud. 3 words delivered the way a door closes. Final. Bae stood, looked at Si-hyun once. Si-hyun didn't look back. Bae left. The room was quiet. Mira closed the laptop. Chairman Han sat for a long time looking at the 3 folders on the table. He thought he was protecting us, Si-hyun said finally. He thought a great many things, Chairman Han replied. He was wrong about all of them. Another silence. Then the old man said the thing he had been carrying since he opened the first box of files. I should have questioned it. Si-hyun looked at his father. Yes, he said quietly. You should have. No comfort. No softening. Just the truth. And Chairman Han accepted it because it was the only honest thing left in the room. Chairman Han asked to see Nalia. Si-hyun carried the message. She came not warmly but she came. The old man was still in the rehabilitation wing. He looked smaller than Nalia expected. Not physically. The chairman of the Han family, even in a hospital chair, carried himself with the posture of a man accustomed to being the largest presence in any room. But something in his expression was smaller. Something had been taken out of it. He looked at her for a moment, then said, I never met you. 6 years ago when everything happened I never once spoke to you. Never called. Never asked. He paused. I believed one man's account of your entire character, and I never questioned it. Silence. I failed you. I failed my son. And I failed a child who spent 5 years not knowing his grandfather was 2 kilometers away. Nalia said nothing. The old man looked at her directly. I am sorry. Not performed. Not a speech. Just a very old man saying the only true thing available to him. Nalia looked down then back up. He needs consistency, she said. Kofi. He doesn't need grand gestures. He needs people who show up. I understand. She looked at Si-hyun. No disappearing. No broken promises. No choosing work over him when it gets inconvenient. Understood. If you make a commitment to him, you keep it. No matter what. Yes. She studied his face, looking for the version Bae had described for 6 years. The cold one. The calculating one. The one who weighed options and chose the easier path. She didn't find him. Kofi comes first, she said. Always, Si-hyun agreed. It started small. The way real things do. A school pickup because Nalia had a late shift and needed help. A phone call on a Tuesday for no particular reason. Homework that Kofi found boring until Si-hyun sat beside him and made it competitive. A Saturday visit that ran 30 minutes over because Kofi was mid-explanation of a cartoon plot and stopping felt rude. Nobody announced it. Nobody declared it. It simply accumulated the way trust does when people do what they said they would. 3 months later, Kofi was at the park with a boy from his class. The boy's mother arrived to pick him up. She looked at Si-hyun standing nearby. Is that your dad? The boy asked Kofi. Kofi looked at Si-hyun. Si-hyun looked at Kofi. Kofi said, yes. No pause, no hesitation, no explanation. Just the word offered the way he offered every word, directly, completely, like it had always been true. Because for Kofi now it was. Kofi chose the restaurant. He had strong opinions about this. It needed to have tteokbokki. It needed good lighting. And it needed a table big enough for everybody. Everybody was a word he used carefully now. He meant all 4 of them. They arrived together. Nalia and Kofi first. Si-hyun 2 minutes after. Chairman Han last, moving more steadily than he had 3 months ago. The rehabilitation had worked. Kofi had helped. They sat. Kofi immediately climbed into the seat between Nalia and Si-hyun. Nobody told him to. It was simply where he went, like a compass finding north. The food arrived. Conversation moved the way it does in rooms with no secrets left. Lightly, easily. Chairman Han asked Kofi about school. Kofi described it in his usual extraordinary detail. The teacher, the cloud hair, the indoor voice rule. Si-hyun had heard this story 4 times now. He still listened like it was the first. At some point Chairman Han turned to Kofi. Your mother tells me you've been coming to visit me for months. Kofi nodded. You helped me get better. Kofi looked pleased. I know, he said simply. The old man laughed softly. What do you call me? Kofi blinked, like this was an obvious question with an obvious answer. Hospital grandpa. The table went quiet. Si-hyun immediately looked down at his drink. Nalia pressed her lips together. Chairman Han stared at his grandson, a boy who had wandered into his hospital room by accident and called him hospital grandpa and brought him potato dog drawings and somehow bullied him into taking rehabilitation seriously. Hospital grandpa, the old man repeated. Because you live at the hospital, Kofi explained helpfully. I don't live there. You were there every time I came. Nalia gave up first. A laugh escaped before she could stop it. Si-hyun covered his mouth. His shoulders were already shaking. Chairman Han looked at his son. Si-hyun immediately turned toward the window, pretending to be fascinated by absolutely nothing. The old man sighed, then turned back to Kofi. You may call me Grandpa. Kofi considered this very seriously. Can I still add the hospital part? No. What if it's only sometimes? No. What if? No. Kofi slumped dramatically into his chair. The table finally broke. Laughter filled the restaurant. Real laughter. The easy kind that comes when nobody is afraid anymore. And for a moment it felt like they had been a family all along. Later, when the food was mostly gone and the conversation had slowed to the comfortable pace of people who no longer needed to fill silences, Kofi reached under his chair and pulled out his drawing pad. He had brought it without telling anyone. He set it on the table and slid it toward Chairman Han. The old man looked down. 4 figures. A boy in the middle. 2 people on either side. An old man at the end. All of them together. All of them smiling. The same drawing Kofi had been making for months. Except this time there was no question mark. No dad written in uncertain crayon beside a figure. Just names. Simple and clear. The way Kofi saw everything. Chairman Han looked at the drawing for a long time. Then he looked at the silver phoenix necklace resting against Kofi's collar. The silver phoenix was no longer proof of what had been stolen. It was proof that love had survived it. Kofi leaned back in his chair. One hand found Nalia's. The other found Si-hyun's. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He was exactly where he had always drawn himself. In the middle. Between both of them. Exactly where he was supposed to be. A lie stole 6 years. The truth gave them a second chance. Then Kofi looked up. First at Nalia, then at Si-hyun, then back at Nalia again. A thoughtful expression appeared on his face. The same expression he wore whenever he was trying to solve a very important problem. Mommy. Yes. When you and Dad get married. The entire table froze. Nalia nearly dropped her glass. Si-hyun stopped breathing. Chairman Han suddenly became very interested in his food. Kofi blinked, completely unaware that he had just changed the conversation. Then he smiled. I want to be the ring bearer. Silence. A very long silence. Then Chairman Han laughed first. Soon everyone else was laughing too. Even Nalia. Even Si-hyun. Kofi looked confused. What? Nobody answered, because nobody knew how to explain that a 5-year-old boy had just announced a future nobody had dared discuss yet. And for the first time in 6 years, hope didn't feel impossible anymore. If this story has you sitting with your hand over your chest right now, then you already know what to do. Subscribe to Bloom and Glow and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment and tell me the moment that got you the most. Was it the necklace in the lobby? Hospital Grandpa? The drawing with the question mark finally answered? Or Kofi asking to be the ring bearer before anyone had even said the word wedding? I read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that the truth always finds its way back, even after 6 stolen years, even after a lie that almost won. Love finds the people it belongs to. It just sometimes needs a 5-year-old with a toy stethoscope to clear the path. I love every one of you. Stay rooted. Bloom always.
In this story, we learn that truth doesn't disappear when it's buried. It just waits for the right moment to surface. A second chance isn't a reset, it's a choice to build something better with the time you have left. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment your best part of the story, and I will see you in the next one.